Hi, VencoreWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Monday, January 8th. Well, the extreme cold weather of the past week or so ends today. However, with that transition to some milder conditions will come an icy scenario for this afternoon and this evening. Certainly there can be some problems for the evening commute as some milder air moves into the upper part of the atmosphere, but the ground level temperatures have been so cold for so long that any liquid precipitation, any liquid rainfall is likely to freeze quickly on some surfaces later today into the early part of tonight. That should become a problem in the DC metro region as well as the Philadelphia metro region anytime from the early to mid-afternoon hours on into the evening commute. New York City may actually have less of an icing problem because it'll still likely remain cold enough up in that area that much of the precipitation that falls later today and early tonight will be in the form of snow. Snow is the best thing you could actually hope for later today, early tonight. That doesn't cause quite the same kind of a problem as ice very well could. And again, it looks like south of New York City, primarily the icing issues look like DC and Philadelphia metro regions in time for the evening commute. Now, here's an example of why we have a potential problem later today. This is a forecast sounding from last night's 60 NAM run for Crofton, Maryland, just to the east of D.C., but rather indicative of the entire region from D.C. to Philadelphia and why we have a potential problem later today. This shows a vertical profile in red here of temperatures going up in altitude. This is basically the surface level down here, and then we're going up in the atmosphere. And again, this is the prediction from the NAM model for Crofton, Maryland for early this afternoon, around 2 o'clock this afternoon. Notice at the surface, at or just below freezing here, but right in this part of the atmosphere right here, you have a warm enough layer of air that is above freezing. And freezing is represented on this particular diagram by this dashed line right here. So this particular area right here is a layer in the upper part of the atmosphere where the temperatures will go above freezing by the early part of the afternoon. Precipitation will fall through that warmer than freezing layer, melt into the form of liquid rainfall, but then it'll fall onto the surface here where temperatures will remain likely at or below freezing during the afternoon hours. Even if the surface temperatures climb to 33, 34, 35 degrees, the ground has been so cold for so long, some freezing is likely. It doesn't even have to be at or below freezing for an icy scenario to develop. So again, this is the problem. We have some warmer air moving in the upper part of the atmosphere, could cause the precipitation to change to a liquid form. That falls on some very cold ground level conditions here for this afternoon and evening. Bottom line is could be an icy commute in DC and Philadelphia metro regions. And again, it looks like precipitation starts during the early to mid-afternoon hours. There will not be a lot of precipitation. The snow that falls in New York City will probably amount to an inch or less. Doesn't take a lot of ice, however, for some potential problems, especially in time for the evening commute. Well, let's take a look at the surface map. First of all, that high-pressure system that dominated the scene over the past several days, the Arctic high, has now plunged all the way down into the Carolinas. It will slowly shift off the coast later on this morning. Notice isobar pattern on the backside of this high, indicative of southwest winds. Winds generally blow parallel to these lines of equal pressure, clockwise fashion around a high. Southwesterly winds in the lower part of the atmosphere, and that will aid in the milder air trying to move into the mid-Atlantic region. However, with such cold, dense air at the surface, that'll be lifted up into the upper part of the atmosphere. Hence, milder air, above freezing air, moves into the upper part of the atmosphere, whereas the ground level stays at freezing or below during the afternoon and evening hours, and that is a recipe for some icing problems. By the way, records certainly fell over the weekend. Yesterday, for example, Philadelphia tied a record of 4 degrees. Dulles Airport actually broke a record, dropping to -1. BWI broke a record dropped to +1 degrees. Wilmington, Delaware broke a record. Reading, Pennsylvania tied a record. Perhaps the most impressive record yesterday, Sunday, January 7th, occurred in Atlantic City, New Jersey, where they made a new record by dropping to -3 degrees. The old record was set way back in 1884 at +4 degrees. So Atlantic City broke a long standing record from 1884, and it shattered it by 7 degrees, dropping all the way down to -3 degrees. Here's a cold frontal system that is pressing to the east right now. We'll see in a moment on radar. There's precipitation ahead of it in the Ohio Valley, and what will move from west to east into the I-95 corridor during the early to mid-afternoon hours. Well, here's the latest radar loop. Some precipitation now moving into western Pennsylvania, West Virginia, a little bit of an outbreak here in south central Pennsylvania, and it looks like basically from around 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock, precipitation could arrive in the D.C. and Philadelphia metro regions. Probably north of I-80, the precipitation stays in the form of snow. That's actually good news for New York City, for example. You would prefer snow in this situation rather than ice, which looks more likely in Philadelphia and D.C. just in time, unfortunately, for the evening commute. Again, not a lot of precipitation. This is not a heavy precipitation event. However, it does not take much precipitation to cause some icing problems. And again, anytime from the mid to late afternoon hours into the early evening hours, there can be some icing issues throughout the D.C. and Philadelphia metro regions. Well, let's take a look at a high-resolution model that progresses in hourly increments. These maps from tropicaltidbits.com. This is the HRRR, known as it's the high resolution rapid refresh model, again on hourly increments. Blue is snow. The pink or purple here is some kind of a mixture between sleet and freezing rain. Let's just move forward in hourly increments, and here we go into the early afternoon hours. Notice some pink and some snow breaking out here across east central Pennsylvania. Liquid rainfall predicted here by the 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon hour across the D.C. metro region. However, keep in mind that liquid rain here still could freeze on surfaces, and should result in some freezing rain across the D.C. metro region. I think there should be more pinks in here, some more freezing rain showing up in the D.C. metro region. Again, this ground has been so cold for so long that ice is a definite threat for the mid, late, early afternoon hours into the early evening hours. Again, north of around I-80, most of this light precipitation event will be in the form of snow. That's good news for the Poconos in New York City. You'll probably avoid the icy mess that could occur later today in Philadelphia and all the way down to D.C. Let's keep progressing forward here. And again, not a heck of a lot of precipitation, but just cold enough at the surface here for some icing issues across Philadelphia and even all the way down into the D.C. metro region. All of this gets on out of here during, let's say, the middle part of the evening hours here. Not a heavy precipitation event, but certainly can cause some icing issues during the mid-afternoon, the late afternoon, into the early evening hours from D.C. across Philadelphia. More snow up across New York City than ice, so that will alleviate potential icing issues up in the New York City metro region. Looking ahead, it looks a little bit milder on Tuesday. Actual temperatures could climb to 40-plus degrees on Tuesday. Now, a couple of things about a thaw after an extended cold period like this. A couple of warning notes. First of all, potholes could suddenly explode. Once we get above freezing, as we will definitely on Tuesday, there can be an explosion of potholes around the area. Any ice that's trapped below the surface of asphalt will melt. That expands, causes some potholes. Don't be surprised if there's some quite a few potholes on the roads starting tomorrow as we climb to 40 degrees on Tuesday. And of course, pipes can suddenly burst given any thaw Now, we're experiencing precipitation on the front end of this thaw as we climb finally to about the freezing mark. And then the real warming, noticeable warming will occur on Thursday and Friday and into Saturday. Certainly could hit 50 degrees in the I-95 corridor during that stretch from Thursday into Saturday, perhaps even 60 degrees in some areas. There will be rainfall associated with that late week warm-up. Now that will end with a strong cold frontal passage around Saturday night into Sunday time frame. Certainly will turn cold again for the early part of next week. That transition at the end of this thaw could actually become kind of interesting. There could be a storm that forms along the frontal system as we transition back to cold for Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday of next week. So a lot going on. Icing issues quite likely in the D.C. and Philadelphia metro regions later today, early tonight. A little bit less likely in New York City, where most of this precipitation event should fall in the form of snow. That's it for now. For VencoreWeather.com, I'm meteorologist Paul Dorian.